A catastrophic convergence of torrential climate-amplified rainfall and systemic urban drainage failures has triggered widespread, devastating flash floods across the Greater Accra Region, Central Region, and parts of southern Ghana. The relentless downpours have completely submerged multiple commercial districts, overwhelmed critical municipal infrastructure, paralyzed major international and domestic transport corridors, and forced thousands of families to flee their homes. Key urban enclaves, including the capital city of Accra, the rapidly growing municipality of Kasoa, and the industrial port city of Tema, are currently experiencing one of the most severe logistical, humanitarian, and environmental crises in recent memory. Emergency response agencies, including a joint coalition of the Ghana National Fire Service, GNFS, the Ghana Armed Forces, GAF, the Ghana Police Service, and the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, have been deployed on a 24-hour rotation to conduct high-stakes search and rescue operations. Utilizing motorized rubber dinghies, military trucks, and specialized rescue gear, these units are actively working to evacuate thousands of citizens trapped on residential rooftops, inside inundated commercial buildings, and atop vehicles stranded along major highways. In a bid to mitigate mass casualties from electrocution, the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, and the Ghana Grid Company, GridCo, have executed strategic emergency shutdowns of major power substations, including vital installations in Mallam and Akimota. This preventive measure has plunged massive swaths of the metropolitan area into darkness, further complicating rescue efforts and severing vital communications. The Ministry of the Interior, in coordination with national security apparatuses, has officially declared a high-level public safety emergency. Citizens residing in low-lying topographies and known floodplains have been strictly ordered to evacuate to designated higher ground or emergency shelters. The Ghana Meteorological Agency, GMET, forecasting sustained heavy rainstorms across the southern coastal belt over the coming days. The nation remains on a knife edge as emergency workers scramble to contain a rapidly escalating disaster. The disaster began with an intense, localized atmospheric depression over the Gulf of Guinea, which swept inland across the southern coast of Ghana. As routine seasonal rainfall rapidly escalated into a historic cloudburst, dumping unprecedented volumes of water over a continuous 12-hour window. The saturated soils of urban Accra, already heavily paved and lacking adequate green spaces for water infiltration, were instantly overwhelmed. By midnight, minor streams and major river basins, such as the Odaw River and the Densu River, had breached their banks, sending walls of muddy water rushing into residential neighborhoods and market centers. As the central nervous system of Accra's vehicular traffic, this vital interchange became completely impassable within hours of the storm's commencement. Water levels rose up to the hoods of standard vehicles, trapping hundreds of commuters and creating multi-kilometer traffic jams that backed up into the central business district. The George Walker Bush Motorway, N1, suffered catastrophic flooding, particularly around Weija and Mallam. The situation was severely compounded by the rising levels of the Weija Dam, forcing engineers to monitor the spillways closely, which inherently heightens downstream flooding risks for communities like Tetegu and Oblogo. Famed for their vibrant markets and dense populations, these areas saw unprecedented property destruction. The Kaneshie Market complex was flooded up to its first level, ruining millions of Cedis worth of wholesale and retail commodities. In Lapaz and Abeka, fast-flowing currents swept away informal structures, kiosks, and vehicles. Low-lying zones within these communities turned into retention basins. The Odaw Channel, which cuts through Akimota, overflowed violently, pushing toxic, waste-filled waters into residential estates and corporate offices. In Tse Addo, a rapidly developing residential area, newly constructed roads lacked proper outfall drains, turning streets into deep lakes. Meanwhile, at the base of McCarthy Hill, Mudslides triggered by the torrential rains blocked secondary access roads, trapping residents in their homes. This critical highway linking the Greater Accra Region to the Central Region became a zone of absolute gridlock. Structural runoffs from the hills of Kasoa cascaded down onto the highway, depositing tons of silt, rocks, and debris, rendering the road hazardous for even heavy-duty trucks. The catastrophic flooding plaguing Ghana's urban centers cannot be attributed solely to meteorological anomalies. Rather, it is the direct consequence of a complex interplay between natural climate cycles, systemic municipal failures, historical planning deficits, and anthropogenic environmental degradation. In recent years, sub-Saharan West Africa has experienced highly volatile shifts in weather patterns. The traditional twin rainy seasons of southern Ghana have become increasingly unpredictable. Meteorological data indicates that while the total annual volume of rainfall has remained relatively stable, the intensity of individual storm events has risen exponentially. Massive volumes of water that previously fell over the course of several weeks are now being discharged within a matter of hours, creating a volume of storm runoff that vastly exceeds the physical carrying capacity of existing natural and engineered drainage basins. One of the most visible and aggravating factors of the flood crisis is the severe choking of the city's drainage architecture by unmanaged solid waste. Due to gaps in municipal waste collection networks, particularly in low-income and informal settlements, tons of single-use plastics, polythene bags, and household refuse are routinely discarded into open gutters and storm channels. When a major storm occurs, this accumulated debris is swept downstream, forming massive, impermeable blockages at culverts, bridges, and subterranean drainage pipes. The water, unable to flow freely through its designated concrete channels, has no alternative but to burst over the banks and inundate the surrounding urban landscape. Rapid, unregulated urbanization has driven a real estate boom that frequently bypasses zoning laws and environmental regulations. Over the past 2 decades, massive swaths of natural wetlands, mangrove swamps, and river floodplains have been systematically paved over, backfilled, and developed into residential estates, warehouses, and informal settlements. Wetlands act as natural sponges, absorbing excess storm runoff and slowing down floodwaters before they reach vulnerable areas. By destroying these ecological safety valves, such as the Corley Lagoon and Sakumono Lagoon catchments, and building permanent concrete structures directly inside natural waterways, developers have permanently altered the hydrology of the region, ensuring that any substantial rainfall translates directly into immediate destructive flash floods. A significant portion of Accra's subterranean storm drainage network was designed and constructed decades ago, during an era when the city's population and paved surface area were a fraction of what they are today. These drains were engineered based on historical rainfall coefficients that are no longer accurate in the face of modern climate change. The maintenance and desilting of these channels have been historically underfunded, leading to a situation where the structural capacity of the city's drains is severely diminished by accumulated silt, sand, and vegetation even before a storm begins. As the floodwaters stabilize, a secondary, equally dangerous crisis is emerging across the affected regions. A widespread humanitarian emergency coupled with severe public health hazards. Thousands of households have been completely displaced, with their homes rendered uninhabitable by water, mud, and raw sewage. Families have lost everything they own, including clothing, documents, school materials, and vital household appliances. Small-scale traders, market women, and informal artisans, who form the backbone of Ghana's urban economy, have seen their stalls destroyed and their capital wiped out overnight. Temporary displacement camps set up in public schools and churches are facing immense pressure, struggling to provide basic necessities, such as clean blankets, dry clothing, and psychological support to traumatized victims. The educational sector has ground to a halt across the Greater Accra Region. In a widely circulated directive, the management of the University of Ghana announced the temporary suspension of all lectures and academic activities. Key areas of the Legon campus, along with critical access roads leading to the institution, were heavily compromised by rising waters. Hundreds of primary, junior high, and senior high schools across Accra, Tema, and Kasoa have closed their doors, either because their facilities are flooded or because the journeys to school pose a mortal danger to students and teaching staff. Public health officials from the Ghana Health Service, GHS, have issued urgent warnings regarding the extreme risk of epidemic outbreaks. The floodwaters have compromised municipal sewage systems, causing pit latrines, septic tanks, and open sewers to overflow directly into residential compounds and drinking water sources. This widespread contamination creates a perfect breeding ground for waterborne pathogens, threatening a spike in cases of. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, has established a centralized command hub to direct rescue operations. Working hand-in-hand with specialized engineering and rescue regiments from the Ghana Armed Forces and tactical teams from the Ghana National Fire Service, rescue workers have braved fast-moving currents and deep waters to reach isolated communities. Special focus has been placed on vulnerable demographics, including pregnant women, infants, the physically challenged, and the elderly. Using flat-bottomed rescue boats and heavy military transport trucks capable of navigating high waters, hundreds of individuals have been safely pulled from high-risk zones in Tetegu, Weija, and Kaneshie. One of the most critical tactical decisions made during the peak of the storm was the authorization of emergency power shutdowns by the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, and Gridco. Flooding at major substations in Mallam and Akamota posed an immediate risk of catastrophic equipment failure and widespread lethal ground fault electrocutions across flooded residential streets. The deliberate blackout successfully prevented mass electrocution casualties. It created secondary challenges. The loss of electrical power instantly deactivated municipal water pumping stations, disrupted mobile telecommunications towers, left hospital emergency rooms relying entirely on backup diesel generators, and left rescue teams navigating pitch-black, waterlogged streets during the night.
And let me say, Aubrey.